Density 512 will soon be presenting the ballet MoonFall. The performance dates May 10th and 11th, May 16th through the 18th, 7:30 p.m. at Dabba Lab. And here with me are two of the creators, choreographer Dorothy Overbey and composer Sam Lipman. Welcome.
Thank you so much.
Yeah,
Wonderful to be here.
Well, thank you for making the time. I know it's a busy time. Dorothy Overbey has been on the faculty of the Department of Theater and Dance at UT and has performed on many stages throughout this country. Sam Lipman is an award-winning composer of film and stage and teaches film scoring and audio production at UT Austin. Well, I know that you gave partial performances or workshop performances before here at KMFA of MoonFall. I thought that the music and the dances were just absolutely stunning, and I know that it captivated our audiences. But tell us how this work came about.
Absolutely. Would you like to start?
So at UT, where we both worked, in about 2012, I got hired as a ballet pianist. And I kind of auditioned for the gig. I was not very good at it, but no one else did. So I stuck in there and I stayed there. And I'm a jazz musician. And I still have a weird time thinking of myself as a composer. So after a few years working with Dorothy and learning this stuff, we had a mentor, Steve Sochi, who was the original pianist. And he also worked at Esther's Follies, the comedy club.
Of course. Yeah.
So he gave me this book of handwritten charts, and they were bits of Mozart, bits of Benjamin Britten, bits of Shostakovich, all these bits that are popular piano music in ballet classes. And over the 3 or 4 years, I got really familiar with them and fell in love with them. And it really took me away from, it was like the next step for me out of jazz and rock music, and I just fell in love with it. And I also was really enjoying Dorothy's technique, watching her teach and her choreography. So 2016.
Late 2016, I think, yeah.
Yeah, you want to talk about Crone a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. So I have another big project, which is not MoonFall, but they're very much related, and it's called Crone, and it's a series of dance films, actually, which is a fantasy narrative world. And so we were loving working together, and I approached Sam actually to commission the music for Crone, and. Yeah, I don't know. I guess it was late 2016 we started working together, and in the spring of 2017 we presented a concert with a 25-piece orchestra of this stunning piece of music, and yeah, absolutely, it was incredible. This is the first time I'd ever gotten to do anything of the sort, and it was a dream come true. It was wonderful, and I think we discovered that we artistically had a lot in common. That we had a lot of common loves.
Yeah.
One of my first. The thing that captured my heart for ballet, the thing that made me want to be a dancer, was when I was very young. It was in the early 80s, and it was actually seeing Stravinsky's Firebird.
Of course.
And I like to laugh that it wasn't, the Nutcracker's wonderful and I love it, but it wasn't the Nutcracker and it wasn't the Sugar Plum Fairy, it wasn't that, and those are all beautiful things, but it was Stravinsky.
Yeah.
And that red tutu,
So
and that
amazing.
music, and the power of it. And I think that we have a lot, I think aesthetically, we have a lot in common. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a dream come true for me to get to write for orchestra, whatever I want, well.
Wow.
It came, with Dorothy. And the music came out of the familiarity with the ballet music, which was new for me. It wasn't something I grew up with. So the next step was right around COVID. A lot of things shut down. A lot of film scores I was working on shut down. Yeah. And after about 6 months, I really felt a craving for intimacy and fun and positive and love, these kind of things. And I wanted to create, I guess I had the idea of creating Dorothy. I went to Dorothy with the idea of creating a work that was a little more fun, kind of bacchanalian, celebrating people coming together. A little bit like Midsummer Night's Dream as an influence. Dorothy was like, heck yeah, let's do it. So I just started throwing sketches to her. The characters in this and the story of MoonFall really came from the music. So the typical tenets of ballet classical music, you've got your soft feminine music, and forgive me for using what are kind of outdated gender things, because we want to change that. But coming out of that, we had sort of soft feminine music, strong like military, more sort of masculine music, and then crazy rhythmic music from the early 20th century, like Shostakovich, and finally some 12-tone music of the mid-20th century. And so each type of music kind of suggested a character. So with the strong masculine music came this kind of godlike power, the sun. The moon came out of its opposite type of music, and so on and so forth. And we ended up with this story, and the rest is history, you could say. Yeah.
Well, that answers one of the questions, what comes first in the process. And I know that it is an immersive experience that explores humankind and our relationship with the sun and the moon's dualistic orbit. That said, does the ballet have, I know it's in 3 acts, does it have certain narratives for each character? It sounds like it does from what you just said.
Yeah, I can see the basics, and Dorothy can take it because she's taken it somewhat beyond. So the basic idea was the sun and the moon start out, they have a relationship. They're like lovers, but something's not quite right. The moon is drifting and becoming paler. And then on the other side, we have the mortals. We have some villagers. We have this one, what do we call them? We call them mortals? No, we call them...
the citizens?
Citizens, thank you. And I found this... There was an old Greek myth called Endymion and Selene, which is a story of the moon falling in love with the shepherd and coming down to earth and having 50 babies with this, in a field. So that was a big influence. So the story kind of unfolded by itself, that the moon has an affair with this young citizen. The sun gets very jealous and angry and throws fire and creates a climate catastrophe, which was nice because it sort of applied to where we are right now. And the rest is how the citizens get together and try to solve the problem. So that's the basic story. I don't know if you want to...
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think for MoonFall, for me, so much of it is about, there's dualism, these dualistic yin and yang relationships within the world. Starting with the sun and the moon, for me, the sun represents the beauty of creation and productivity and power and achievement and all these things. But in the context of MoonFall, much like in our own world, these things have become imbalanced and dominant. And so now the sun has gone into more of a negative patriarchal colonial force,
right.
And is dominating the moon. For me, the moon stands for community, care, compassion. And I think that really struck me, actually. And for me, in creating the choreography, I took a lot of these themes and just delved more deeply into them. And so we have this duality of the sun and the moon. And there's also duality of different populations within MoonFall. They're the citizens, and they're very industrious people who, again, are interested in creativity and industry and building. There are also there's a character called the magician. And the magician is kind of in league with this group of muses, who are thought forms, really, just forces of nature that the magician has learned to harness. And the magician and the muses they come into the world when there's some kind of schism, when there's some kind of opportunity for change or for growth. And in some ways, they're agents of chaos and revolution. And so there's just these different dualisms within MoonFall. And it's been thrilling to dive deeply into these themes.
And if you could talk about this immersive experience, because that could mean a lot of things. So.
It can mean a lot of things, absolutely. So here's what it looks like for us. In Act 1, all of the dancers and musicians, also who are magicians, all the dancers and musicians will be together on one stage. And it's a very small, intimate performance. So you get to be up close to all the performers, which is beautiful. However, in Act 2, we are dividing the dancers and musicians into smaller groups of 2 and 3, and there are going to be 3 different scenes going on in 3 different rooms synchronously. So the audience can go, have an intermission, refresh their beverage, and then wander from room to room at will, where they'll see different parts of the plot play out in these smaller places. It's also interactive, so that we will have opportunities through the use of things the audience can write down, which will affect the choreography, some of which will be live devised on the spot, through the use of props, through interaction with the dancers. The audience will also have an opportunity to interact and affect the unfolding story in some ways.
Okay, so but there are 5 performances.
Yes.
So this will be fluid throughout the
Mhm.
because of different audience members and ideas and such. Down the road, when you wish to perform this again and you're asked by, you're going to another city with it,
Yeah.
for example, will it continue to be fluid? Will you always include the audience?
Yeah, it will continue to be fluid. Some parts of it are certainly set, like
Right,
you know,
of
Act
course.
1 and Act 3. You know, I've choreographed in a lot of ways in traditional ways.
Yeah.
Although we've also sourced some of the movement for those things from the dancers and even from the audience. I'll talk about that for a moment because we got to have this wonderful event here at KMFA last year on May 7th, and during that event we tested this lovely method of devising choreography live on the spot with input from the audience. And what we were doing was talking about a theme of the work. We would talk about a character like the sun or the moon, and the audience would give words that reminded them of this. And then we have a way for the dancers to just instantaneously devise movement based on those words. So some of the things that were devised here at KMFA were actually going to be in the ballet.
Lovely, lovely.
Yeah.
I imagine you'll get numerous people writing down eclipse.
Yes,
For
we had
sure.
a lot of eclipse, yes.
For sure. Well, I understand that you're interested in transcendence for the audience, and I also read that you, Sam, you're interested in transcendence in terms of the music, maybe not as obviously old form classical, and that's where you meet with that idea in mind. When I heard the music, I thought of Prokofiev right away.
Okay,
and I
yeah.
did ask you after, like I said, and I just said, is there anyone who's, you know,
Yeah.
and you've said Prokofiev, and I was like, oh, okay, cool. And you've mentioned Stravinsky. Do you have any other musical influences in the world of classical or jazz?
Oh, there's
in terms
so
of writing
many.
music.
And there are so many direct influences on this piece. I mentioned Benjamin Britten earlier. Prokofiev's a big influence. Stravinsky is kind of an influence on those magicians. A lot of film scores too, 1945-ish era,
Good.
which I love. As a film composer where I work with characters all the time, it's such a blessing to work with dance because there's no dialogue, it's
Right.
pure emotion. And so the music can really be itself.
That one, yeah.
Yeah, there's a ton of influences, and I don't want
Okay.
to tell you who they are because you'll realize that I stole from them.
It was still all yours, but it's lovely to hear different influences and not just one. And in terms of choreography, who stands out for you,
Oh, absolutely.
Dorothy?
Absolutely. Even though I would say this kind of lands in the genre of contemporary ballet,
Yeah.
a lot of the classical modern choreographers, like Martha Graham, for instance, I mean, of course, I actually think that there's a lot that I think that Martha Graham's work has a lot of influence actually onto this. Jose Limon as well, of course. In more modern, but however, I would say in the more modern era, dance theater. Pina Bausch, for instance, right? I think the pioneer of dance theater, and you know, I put that intentionally kind of in the name of my company as well, because I think I do think that in terms of our art form, I don't know, I think that is the future of it. You know, a dance which is less this abstracted technical phenomenon, but something that connects with people.
Connections.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, that's wonderful. I'm hoping to have Sam play a couple of the motives, and how much say did you have? Did you actually ask Sam to, like, I want something crunchy now or militaristic, and there are many words you could use.
Right, absolutely. You know, it's interesting. I don't have to say much because we worked together since 2016.
Yeah.
You know, and one of the things that we kind of already share and kind of we established when we first started collaborating is, I don't know. I think that with the traditions that we do really enjoy, I think are, for instance, the idea of like leitmotifs for different characters and things like that, and having that being almost a kind of a very literal thing, very cinematic, and I love
Very
that, right?
Yeah.
I think, I don't know, I pretty much love everything that he does, so it really all works out. And but one thing that I do really love is particularly, I do love to be literal with musicality. Right, I love to study the score. I studied as a pianist also growing up.
Oh, wow.
So I love to study the score. I love when he throws me some complex rhythms. You know, we
Of
start
course.
off a lot of our rehearsals with the dancers actually clapping the, you know, in
Oh, wow.
yeah, clapping
that.
in the rhythms. Yeah, absolutely. All these dancers know the music now really well. They're singing it all the time. The yeah, so I really enjoy that. Actually, I love something that I can dive into and that has some complexity to work with.
Beautiful, yeah.
And this project's a little different in that. So with Crone, Dorothy was asking requests,
okay.
and for this one, I kind of requested, can you give me some leeway on this one, and she took a leap of faith, and
Yeah.
so it's mostly it's okay, and it's because a lot of what I do is working for other people, and I wanted to have a lot of freedom on one
Yeah.
project, so I'm so grateful for that.
Oh my gosh, of course.
What a-
You know, the thing that I think you did ask me for sometimes is kind of some examples, like, because for instance, we decided that we wanted to begin this, which is very unusual for a ballet, or what have you, begin with soloists. Begin with kind of like exposition of characters.
That's
You know,
right.
usually there are a lot of group dancers, and then like the classical grand pas de deux format, right? Usually happens at the very end. In this ballet, it happens at the very beginning. And we establish the sun and we establish the moon, and they have this pas de deux. So some of the most like, I don't know, the most built up and well cultivated choreography for this piece is right at the top. And so, but one thing I think he did ask me for is kind of examples of traditional male variations from ballet or female variations from ballet, or just like, what is it, because even though we are, as Sam likes to say, reimagining this tradition, I think that you wanted to start from somewhere,
In the tradition.
yeah, start with
And we're extrapolating,
yeah.
coming into the future.
Oh,
And we
it's-
talked, one concept that was pretty important that we talked about earlier was this idea of cycles and a sort of a circular
Yeah.
thing. And different, so for me, I was looking for rhythms against other rhythms. So polyrhythmicality, cross rhythms, something like a 5/4 against a 6/8. In two different sections of the orchestra where you have two populations dancing in different cycles. That was an idea for some of the fight scenes that you'll see. And then also Mieczysław Weinberg, Aaron Copeland, Alban Berg. I'm just remembering some other influences that I forgot earlier.
Yes, well, it's quite a leap. I mean, it's what an interesting career you have had, given that you call yourself a jazz musician, and then
Well, not anymore.
not anymore. No, but you did at the start of the interview, and it's quite a leap from
Sure.
a chord chart and a lead sheet to scoring, and your music is absolutely stunning, as I said earlier, as is your choreography. I'm hoping that you will play a little for us.
So a couple of themes from MoonFall. I'm going to play 4 character themes. This first one is our first character, the sun. And you'll be hearing trumpet and French horn. He's loud. He's a loud character. And then shortly after the sun comes in the moon. The moon's theme actually comes from an old Quaker hymn, which is called For the Beauty of the Earth. But the moon is lost, and you're going to hear the same theme in kind of a broken way. And the moon gets her first chord. third character is a young lady. Her name is Lena, and this is her music. She'll be played in flute. And our final characters are the magicians that I'll present. This is actually a group of people. And I'll do my best. The music's kind of tricky.
Once again, MoonFall, the performances will take place May 10th and 11th, 16th through 18th, 7:30 p.m. You'll have 5 opportunities to go, and that will happen at Dabble Lab, which is kind of central, as you told me, Dorothy. And you have a couple of special performances, I believe. Did you want to tell us?
Yes, we have a deaf night at which we will have an ASL interpreter, and we also have a family night performance. Yeah.
Wonderful. Well, you can learn about that online. And all good wishes, break a leg, or I think I can say that for dance, I'm not sure.
Yeah, absolutely. We do have a special thing we say.
The other one,
Do you
the
know
French
what it is?
word?
Yes,
the French word.
Yes,
Yes,
okay.
I do.
Okay, we won't say
Yes.
it on air.
Well, thank you for taking the time coming in today, and we cannot wait for the performances. I'll see you there.
All right,
Thanks,
you so
Diane.
much.
Thank you.